Hello everyone, it's live at 5 Mondays. Here we are again, and again, you would think things are crazy, crazy, and sometimes crazy good, but quite the opposite in some other ways. And I look forward to sharing some things with you today. Absolutely, you don't want to miss some of this information to explore, to be aware of. That's what I will say. Leave it as that. But how is everybody? At the end of the day, the sharing with each other or the communication that comes with that and connecting with each other is going to be or is feels good and can be very practical and healthy and grounding for at this time. So it just matters where people uh, are and thinking and where their head is thinking at. So today, I'm just going to make sure it's on public. Yeah, it is public. Never times, they've done this once to me before, FB, where I guess I was in FB jail or something, and everything doing the video would actually just automatically be, what was it, not, yeah, private, that kind of thing. So got some interesting things going on today. One of the things I want to talk about, and this is an area that I'm diving into only because it doesn't hurt to learn something new, but I am interested, very interested, and that is the prepping, right, or being prepared. And in some cases that can be safety, and it can be beyond that. But one of the things that I invested in, and I tell you it's an investment because it's not cheap, is freeze drying. So here's my little booklet, freeze drying. Harvest Right was the freeze dryer that kind of came into my awareness as being the one, and I thank my sis for bringing this to my attention for sure. And one of the things, so this is the guide, and so I have to have the electrician come in here to make it cool so I don't blow a fuse every time. And there's a lot of pieces to it for sure, as in what to know. But what can we freeze dry and what can't we freeze dry? I thought I would tell you the answers to those questions. So at the end of the day, you're freezing the water out of it is really what you're doing. And so that becomes so dehydrated. So you have the dehydrator, which I got last Christmas, and that's fine. But what I learned is not everything can be for a long time, like jerky. So I was doing the I think it was got some water buffalo in the dehydrator, and I think I left it in too long because the type of it was already sliced, and I think it was sliced so thin that it was truly, I'm not lying, putting my jaw at a joint, like actually like slipping it right out. It was so chewy, and that was interesting to do that. It was more like suck on it, rehydrate it so I could actually eat it. So freeze dry fruits and vegetables, meats and dairies, meals and desserts. So meals, interesting dessert. But what can't be freeze dried? Wheat bread, that can't be freeze dried. So very oily foods. Well, because it's not water. So when I was just saying, so that makes complete sense now that I'm reading it, when I was just saying it, taking the water out of it, freeze drying the water out of it, that's what's happening. But oils, if you see, oils can go solid, yes, but not rock solid like you think of ice cubes, right? So if you think of water being frozen, that's solid. that's that's hurt. That'll hurt. But oil, not so much. Not oil, not so much. So freeze dryers extract the water from food, but the oil will remain in the food. So some foods don't react well because of this. So pure butter, peanut butter, and chocolate do not freeze dry. Well, let's talk about chocolate for a minute there, because chocolate, quite often with chocolate, there is what they call the palm oil in it. Now, I'm not sure if they're talking about chocolate powder, the cocoa powder, because when you take the cacao bean, which is in a pod, so there's many of them in there, and they dry the seeds, which have a shell on it, And in that, it's the seed of it. It's not the fruit of it. It's the seed. And in there is all kinds of things. There's chocolate, I think cloberine, if I'm remembering my things, like an alcohol, which is part, and then the powder, the cake powder, which is basically the leftover stuff. It's not the most expensive. If you want to get expensive chocolate, you want one with the cocoa butter in it, which is kind of like a whitish color, creamy color. And so if they're talking about chocolate in and of itself, there's a lot of cocoa butter in there. But pure peanut butter, oh my, that will cause you to choke. You want to do a let's whistle contest. I mean, besides crackers as well, but pure butter. Yeah, these, they seem hard in the freezer, of course, but they don't have that same thing, especially polyunsaturated fats. Like the seal oil, for instance, you put that in the freezer and it ain't gonna freeze. It might go somewhat thicker for sure. However, if these items are included in other foods, they freeze dried just fine. So in essence, if you have butter in something else, it'll probably be okay. Or if you think of eggs, right, the ratio of water to fat, perhaps. So egg is probably one. I know that you can, from the video I watched with my sister, is you can beat up like you were making an omelet with a fork, or whisk, whatever, and that's liquid egg. And you can put that in onto the tray and then put that and freeze dry that to a powder. Then that powder becomes amazing for campers, amazing for hikers as far as weight goes. And then all you really need to do is add water back in. So it says here, but cakes, so freeze-dried wheat bread. So honey, syrups, and jams. These foods make a sugary mess when freeze-dried and can't be reconstituted. It almost sounds like an experiment for Cheryl. Yeah, probably am going to try to freeze dry honey to see what it can. If it's not going to break my machine, then I'm all for it. So let's see here. These foods make sugary mess. Yeah, whatever that means. Because my daughter did say that freeze-dried candy is a thing. So this is interesting. Here, bread, cake, and muffins. These foods can be freeze-dried, but reconstituting such foods in a bowl of water makes for a very soggy texture. Of course it would. So I guess we've got to really put on our noggin here. But I mean, in this guide, it's going to give me all kinds of examples. But that's a very good thing to think about. If you add water to a muffin, now it might be different if you have muffin mix. So if you take muffin mix and you freeze dry it, and then you add water to it, and then you bake it, that might be okay. However, when constituted properly, things like sliced bread, banana bread, pound cake, and turkey stuffing turn out perfectly. Okay, so even for me, I got to figure out what they're kind of saying. So what are some of the things you can freeze dry? Obviously, fruits. Freeze drying times are not set in stone. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So this will be interesting. This will be experimenting for me. And then it looks like tomatoes so you can get sun-dried tomatoes, dried tomatoes, and now freeze-dried tomatoes. So that'll be cool. Well, when I was watching that video where they did the eggs, what they also did at the same time is not freeze-dried, just the liquid egg. They actually freeze-dried peppers, onion, and so they put in the freeze dryers. So basically, at the end of the day, they could be in different containers, but I don't think you would have to do that, but I think they did. And so you make an omelet. So they were mixing these vegetables that were freeze-dried and putting them together, and on the show, they showed them putting them together, and then the right amount of water, and then it seemed like they were just mixing it from scratch, to tell you the truth. You know, the egg and the white and how it's different, it looks different and stringy and stuff. And it looked exactly like if you just made it from scratch. And then they cooked it. Now I didn't get to taste it, obviously, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. But that's what I wanted to talk about today, freeze drying. But one of the things I can tell that I am going to do is meats. So the pet industry uses freeze-dried foods. They use it. And it's really light. I mean, again, that's why you probably want to bring it to camping, or again, that's probably why it's easier to store because it doesn't have to be in the freezer. So that's the key point. It doesn't have to be in the freezer and will last 20 years. And that, even though I've heard been some on these prepping things, they'll say, yeah, a can, but as long as the can's not dented, then you're okay. But if it's freeze-dried, what's a dent or two in the freeze-dried piece of meat? But here you can freeze-dry raw steak. You can freeze it. Probably chewing it with your saliva would probably be perfectly fine. Or I guess you can add a little bit of moisture to it and it'll reabsorb the moisture. And it might be just like raw steak, and then you can cook it. Something like that. But the freeze-dried liver doesn't look like dark red. So I am going to make this distinction. Because that's what I get from my dog, and a lot of people do. It's the brownish color, the lightish color that's similar to when you've cooked liver. So this is going to be interesting for me to go through this thing, is whether or not does it remain raw still. Or if I did liver raw. So once you rehydrate them, the raw meat should be used right away because the freeze-dry process does not kill bacteria. That's interesting. It doesn't kill bacteria. Yeah, so label any meat that hasn't been cooked. The Harvest Right freeze dryer works with raw meat and cooked meat. There you go, I like. But don't assume that the freeze drying your meats will make them bacteria free. Label your jars and bags with raw if they're going to hold any uncooked poultry. Yeah, that would be for sure. Fish as well, beef, pork, or eggs. So lots of interesting things, something to learn, but I'm very interested in doing the pear berries or the Saskatoon berries. They're in, so as soon as one does a hook up the machine, then I'm going to go out and do some foraging for some of the Saskatoon berries because there's many bushes around here. I want to try that. I want to see if I can get enough mulberries and try mulberries. I think they can be all in one sheet, and then possibly do some apples as well. So this would be interesting, an interesting project. But freeze drying, oh, apparently you can freeze dry ice cream as well, my daughter said. And yeah, very interesting, freeze dried. The thing is lasting 20 years. Now, whether that means you're putting it in a plastic bag, because that's what you get with the machine, is you get a full out sealer. Now, I'm not sure if it does a mason jar, but there is such a thing as getting an extension, and you can seal the mason jar. But they have they call them Mylar little pouches that help with the moisture, because moisture gets into freeze-dried food, then it's gonna react, in my thinking, without having to read the guide. So you want to keep the moisture out, out of the the sealed packages and out of the mason jars. That's what you want to do, for sure. It can't be any other way. I mean, just can't be any other way. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I am going to read this quote, a little bit of inspiration, but I can tie a little bit on it. I want to read this. Some of you may have already heard me speak to Abraham Hicks, absolutely, and it's a daily quote, and here is what it says for today. When you are in vibrational harmony, your body produces whatever it needs to remain in perfect balance. So that was from 1996. A lot of what they say is what I would say forever and forever and a day. I mean, if you're going to create a song, well, the creation of that song is as it is, and in this case, nature is as it is. And so when you are vibrationally and you raise your vibrations, you kind of raise harmony that way, then you are automatically going to be producing, in this case, the chemicals or whatever it is, to remain in that perfect balance. And that, again, we could be going into biology and chemistry within that. So a little bit of inspiration that we're going to keep on moving towards feeling good. right? Whether that means you're appreciating things, you're grateful for things, you're taking steps to look at what that altered ego is getting you to think and feel not so good, because it just so happens that this week I'm doing both a video for a whereas I do have it here. It's for a, I don't want to say it. It is a, I know I have it here, inspirational thing. Guess I don't have it right there. Oh, I do have it somewhere. But anyway, it's an inspirational thing, and it is, oh, there's more to it. Oh, I know where it is. I know where it is. Because we're looking at this. Stepping into your divinity. Stepping into your divinity. So I'm offering like a 10-minute or 15-minute or however long, uh, introducing ego for how ego interferes with a a balanced or an in harmony lifestyle. I mean, the altered ego, negative ego, or whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it George or Harvey or whatever, then that those things that it's telling you, whether you're better than or less than or whatever it is, or all the judgments you can put out, or all judgments towards yourself, at that space, that's the ego, that's the altered ego, and they're all lies. I know you want to feel better than somebody else. That's okay. You can feel that and understand what that feels like, but at the end of the day, being man, every person, every man on this planet, lady, male, female, lady, gentleman, whatever it is, we're all man. And man is simple. We're all equal at the end of the day. And you kind of been hearing this, and you can see that either side, who are not, feel the injustices, are pushing for that, equality. How do you do it exactly? Well, there's definitely differences, I mean, between man and woman, but that doesn't make us less equal. So we kind of have that. So ego, that wonderful ego. And again, if you're not feeling good with the thoughts that come in, then it's the ego, the altered ego, lying to you. That's what I would say. So let's get into some news. Let's get into some interesting things. One of the things, you may have mentioned me, I want to shout out to Hugo, because he has these very, very short videos, but these short videos come up with some interesting finds, because he always is uh, bringing up the facts in that case. And so but do you remember me speaking about the zombie preparedness that CDC has on their website? CDC, Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. So here we go, zombie preparedness. I didn't make this up, people. It is right on the website. I'll put it up again, and there's 4 sections to it. But let me read the introduction to it so you can kind of get a sense of where they're coming. It's a little bit cheeky here. Wonder why zombie apocalypse and zombie preparedness continue to live or walk dead on a CDC website? As it turns out, what first began as a tongue-in-cheek campaign to engage new audiences with preparedness messages has proven to be a very effective platform. We continue to reach and engage a wide variety of audiences on all hazards preparedness via zombie preparedness. Okay, so it's very interesting. So here's the products, as they call it, zombie preparedness blog. And there are all kinds of emergencies out there that we can prepare for. And take a zombie apocalypse, for example. Yeah, and I'm going to go into that one because I do want to further expand on that. From what I just read, you're thinking tongue-in-cheek campaign. But no, they're serious about some of this stuff. Zombie preparedness for educators looking to teach preparedness in the classroom. Now, I wonder where this is kind of coming from. I mean, it's all this stuff I want to read now. We've got full lesson plans and activities for you to use or adapt with your students. Zombie preparedness poster. Yeah, step right up, get your poster, get your kit. Spanish or England, of course. It's English, it's USA. Zombie preparedness graphic novel. Oh boy, I want to read this. Looking for an entertaining way to introduce emergency preparedness? Well, check out our graphic novella which uses the idea of a zombie apocalypse to demonstrate the importance of preparedness. Well, it's interesting because if I had to demonstrate anything, I don't think I'd have people walking around as zombies, but included is a personal preparedness checklist so you can take action once you're done reading. Oh man, I so look going through this after I have my course video done today. So let's go into the preparedness blog because, and this is, I believe this is the one that I had talked to in a previous live at 5. And will it come up sooner than later? Sooner. Let's see if this is, if it's going, yeah, brief history on zombies. Yeah, this is interesting. So in here, in the movie shows, literature, zombies are often depicted as being created in an infectious virus. Oh, really? So they're being created by an infection virus. Huh. I wouldn't have said that, but I know there was a thing with Haiti, and you put them in a zombie-like state, and then they were so scared shitless because they were buried alive. And then they became zombies because they were traumatized beyond belief. I do not or have not watched all these movies and shows, but if you have, then put a comment down below. But here, this is what it's saying. In movies, shows, and literature, zombies are often depicted as being created by an infectious virus. Didn't know that, which is passed on via bites and contact with bodily fluids. No, I've still got the Haiti thing in my head. Harvard psychiatrist Stephen Schulzman wrote a fictional medical paper. It says fictional. Interesting. Why would a psychiatrist write a fictional medical paper on zombies presented in Night of the Living Dead and refers to the condition as a toxic neurodegenerative satiety deficiency syndrome caused by an infectious agent? Wow, the stuff they're trying to plant, plant the idea that they're caused for that. But other zombie origins shown in films include radiation from a destroyed NASA Venus probe, as in Night of the Living Dead, as well as mutations of existing conditions such as prions. Ooh, there's that prion word that we have read about. Measles, rabies, and mad cow disease. So I'm not going to read any more of this. However, better to be safe than sorry. Again, they're talking about more of a natural disorder here, but so what do you need to do before zombies or hurricanes or pandemics, for example, actually happen? So it talks about water, food, medication, tools, supplies. So you might find it interesting going through this because I can see from listening into some prepping and watching some videos that yes, medications is a big one. So water, food, obviously warmth, that kind of thing. Tools and supply, yes, yes, you want to be able to do that, in batteries and store batteries and gas tanks and stuff like that. Sanitation and hygiene, yeah, haven't heard so much of that in really, but they have it in here. Clothing and bedding. Yeah, you definitely want to do warm. This whole body temperature, and that'll depend always on the time of year should an emergency happen. First aid supplies, yes, sometimes people will miss on that. You have to kind of go beyond the little first aid kit that you may be holding on to or in your truck. You might have to go a little bit beyond that and look up various things that could happen in an emergency. Like some places it could be a hurricane, and some cases we'll never have a hurricane or a tornado. So if you understand where you are and what things they're talking about, then great. But never fear, CDC is ready. If, if zombies did start roaming the streets, CDC would conduct an investigation much like any other disease outbreak. So CDC would provide technical assistance to cities, states, or international partners dealing with a zombie infestation. And this assistance might include consultation, lab testing and analysis, patient management and care, tracking of contacts, and infection control, isolation, quarantine. Very much like what they kind of talk about in the current scenario, which is just, like the flu. But anyway, the thing I really want to go into, people, is, I'm going to bring that up too. I got my I'm not going to say trusty, I'm going to say crazy sapien book. So let me just go back to the video to make sure we are all in the scenario here. See if there's any questions. So let me read something to you. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book Sapiens, if you've ever read the book Sapiens, but I forced myself to read the book and to get a good chuckle, but yet see and realize what it is that this book is putting it in. Now, this is supposed to be a brief history of mankind. It goes into the future by far. Now, I got the next one, Homo Deus, which is all the future mankind. And it's not anything crazy, the first 100 pages, but it's 450 pages, thereabouts. So, besides this book telling you that everything is made up, okay, everything is made up outside what you can see in nature and your naked body and stuff like that. Everything is made up, okay. Think of manufacturing. Think of you're good in math, but you're not good in math. You're good in art, but that person's not good in art. It's all made up stuff, okay, made up. So, and here I just want to read a couple of things, because really this takes it to a degree of, well, okay, we got the zombie stuff going that direction, but here's what they really are trying to kind of go in here. So I'm reading this straight out of Sapiens book. If you have the book, I'm on page 410 and 411. If you jot down those numbers, you can go in and kind of read these 2 pages, because, and then next to that is the Frankenstein or Stein, however you want to say it, prophecy. But improvements in medical knowledge will come to new ethical conundrums. Yeah, we're turning humans into part robot. So it kind of goes through that, of course. And the question here, would all humans be entitled to such enhanced abilities? This is what they talk about. In this book, it's all about you're getting an enhancement, like a brain augmentation, so that you can think and process things. It's almost like a mini computer in your head. But from my conversations on talking and sharing the book Anastasia's, our brain will far surpasses all of the computers on this planet. Okay, that's in the series The Ringing Cedars, Anastasia. But you have to read beyond the first book. There's 9 books, but they're much shorter than this Sapiens book. Maybe 160 pages, 180. So here we go. Would all humans be entitled to such enhanced abilities, or would there be a new superhuman elite? Good question. It goes on, but I want to read this here. And this is not science fiction, it tells you. No, most science fiction plots describe a world in which sapiens, identical to us, enjoy superior technology such as light-speed spaceships and laser guns. Anyway, down here it says, well, I'll continue so you can read. The ethical and political dilemmas. Now, I don't know about you, but any politician shouldn't be able to make the call that we're going to allow this. Dilemmas central to these plots are taken from our own world, and they merely recreate our emotional social tensions against a futuristic backdrop. Oh yes, yeah, you're probably going to feel like you don't want it. Yet the real potential of future technologies is to change Homo sapiens itself. Let this sink in, people, because it's not only in this book, because I'm going to put up a couple other links, including our emotions and desires, and not merely our vehicles and weapons. Let me repeat that. Yet the real potential of future technologies, we're thinking computer, saying hello to our aunt halfway around the world, pressing a button and all the lights turning on in the house. That's what we've kind of been seeing. Robots and building cars, all these technologies. Oh, no, that's not as far as they want to go. Yet the real potential of future technologies is to change Homo sapiens itself. Well, let's just say man itself. They give all these labels and stuff to it, including our emotions. That's what makes us man. Our emotions, our joy, our the humor, the play, the adventure, all of that, and desires, and not merely our vehicles and weapons. They want to change change your emotions and your desires. You know what? We think you're going to be much better as a professor in science than going off and being a artist. No, not just kind of, yeah, we're going to change that. You're just going to be this. So, what is a spaceship compared to an eternally young cyborg who does not breed and has no sexuality, who can share thoughts directly with other beings, whose abilities to focus and remember are 1,000 times greater than our own, and who is never angry or sad, but has emotions and desires that we cannot begin to imagine. So people, right out of Star Trek. How many people here are Star Trek fans? Yeah, I studied them. I watched them. So my teachers had us exposed to it and question and comment and have some things. But cyborg, young cyborg, there you go. There you go. You're going to be part of the Borg. The Borg. And you're going to be hooked up to a hive mind. So at the end of the day, your thoughts aren't going to be your own. But heaven forbid, you don't. That's okay. Anyway, so it goes on. It goes on. You know, the Frankenstein prophecy, that's what happens when you watch Young Frankenstein. Does everybody know the movie Young Frankenstein? Just a classic, right? So you have Igor, whatever, coming out, hunchback, one on one side, and then it shifts to the other, and Frankenstein, like, depends on which way you want to go. It is a story of a scientist. So the I'm going to say the 1818, Mary Shelley published Frankenstein, and the story of a scientist who creates an artificial being that goes out of control and wreaks havoc. Now, I'm not sure if he's so much artificial, because really just transplanted kind of things and changed things from one body. In the last 2 centuries, the same story has been told over and over again in countless versions. It has become a central pillar of our new scientific mythology. At first sight, the Frankenstein story appears to warn us that if we try to play God and engineer life, we will be punished severely, yet the story has a deeper meaning. The Frankenstein myth confronts Homo sapiens with the fact that the last days are fast approaching. Unless some nuclear or ecological catastrophe intervenes, so goes the story. The pace of technological development will soon lead to the replacement of Homo sapiens. That's because they're telling you that story. So that's one of the things that in this I kind of see is like planting the seeds, guiding you to believe some of these things. No, I'm going to go back up here, which is, yes, this is playing God and engineering life, and it isn't a good thing. That's what I'm going to say. Anyway, but our place will be taken by alien life forms whose abilities dwarf our own. So my goodness, we better get together with the technology and the AI and do all of that. Sorry, this book drives me crazy. But anyway, so the thing about genetic engineering half robots is they actually have an article. Let me bring it up here. Oh, I should have it here. Yes. Human augmentation. This is right on, I'm going to put the links below so you know, this is right on the UK government website. Right on the UK government website. It's a whole thing. Human augmentation, the dawn of a new paradigm. No joking, people. I'm not joking. And a think piece designed to set the foundation for more detailed research and development on human augmentation. This is a think piece designed, and they've already thought about it, people, as far as I'm concerned. But here's a document they have, Human Augmentation, the Dawn of a New Paradigm, Strategic Implications Project. So I always like to step back and go, well, what do they mean by that? So in here, I think they have a partnership with German and Swedish. Project incorporates research from German, Swedish, Finnish, and UK defense specialists to understand how emerging technologies such as genetic engineering bioinformatics and the possibility of brain-computer interfaces could affect the future of society, security, and defense. Yeah, they want to build robots to do their fighting and to control people. End of story. I mean, that's, you know, the idea that there's so much of this. I've talked about this as far as other documents that come into play with technology, and I'm going to say it's so skewedly, but you know, the economic-y, globally, whatever, for money, you know, that kind of thing, just so it doesn't kind of come through. But anyway, that in particular, that's, you know, technology is a very huge piece. So I am so curious of reading this human augmentation 110 pages PDF. Fascinating. I'm going to tell you what the picture has on it. I mean, I could show you if I had it, but the picture that's on it is kind of like in space. I can't see, it's a little bit small. So that dark blue universe kind of space. It's got a human hand coming on one side and a robot hand coming on the other side. And that's where the spark is. And in that meeting place is the human DNA, or let's say a DNA, double helix DNA strand. Freaky. Okay, well, that's enough about that. Some other things that kind of come through. Hugo talk. So again, grateful for Hugo. Hugo, keep doing what you're doing. It's bringing more awareness as much as it is what it is. The craziness, we gotta laugh, it's crazy. So this is something as well, emergency on planet Earth. What they're doing in the UK and US are also talk about it. Canada's already put into place where your phone, I mean, this is a child being abducted. You know, we're not talking about certain things, but they prepared that our phones have this emergency, and it's like a siren. Like you're in wartime, siren goes off and you all better duck. In this case, you all better read what is actually showing on your phone. Amber alert, maybe it's red alert, amber alert in most of those cases, letting you know what the scenario is. How can I say it? Miles away. It could be like Niagara Falls from here, or miles away as to where it's happening. So we really have to kind of, now what I'm going to do is, you know, we're going to shake all this off at the end of the day and get into life and, you know, that kind of thing. But I did want to talk about the fact that resistance is futile. Yes, you will be assimilated. And that's, you know, this is the whole native thing, Gordon, right? Right. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Yeah, you know what? I think what you're going to find out is how many movies, how many shows, how much communication has been fed to us by all the routes it can be. And for us to kind of, yeah, you know, have some awareness of it. So it's not freaky. It's just, geez, I mean, just the thinking of it being similar to the Borg is, I'm so familiar with the Borg, having watched all of the Star Trek. I mean, all of them, and waiting for the next one to come out the next season. Anyway, yeah, predictive programming. Good words for that. So the idea is really to step back. I mean, when I talked about the egoic mind in the beginning, it not serving you in the way it can not serve you. Anything that doesn't feel good, anything that thinks you're better than, anything that makes you feel less than, and all the feelings and emotions that come in with that is the ego lying. You know, it's just lying to you. Just wants to trip you up, trip you. In some cases, some people say will all out destroy you or kill you. Well, listen, if you let your mind go amok enough, yeah, things could happen. You could make choices just to end that misery, end that ego, to stop all that chatter, for sure. For sure. So what, I mean, really, when I think about the altered ego, it's given material. So let's look at it that way. And when you're young, and let's just say, you know, somebody does something to you and is very hurtful, and you know, bullies and stuff like that. Well, you can carry that with you. Or somebody says a comment you're a bad boy or something, and you take that with you, and instead of rising up in the occasion, you're a young child, you shouldn't have to put up with that, but we have so much dysfunctioning that's happening for centuries and millennia that it is here where we are, right? Dysfunction, dysfunction, dysfunction. And so children are having to build all of this material that the ego, or part of the mind, or the way the ego operates, so that you have all this material, all this kind of material that it keeps in, whether it's patterns repeat until you decide you want to release it fully, and sometimes you have to go back in time to see when it first happened, these traumas and stuff. But it doesn't serve us for sure. So the idea is it just comes, it just comes, it just comes and continues to come. Yep, little puppies. Bye, puppy. So what happens is we, even over time, we're passing that on from one century to another, from one generation to another, is all of this garbage, right? All of this drama for the reasons we are. We don't know any better, right? We don't know any better. So this is kind of the thing to do. Yes, it is about the ego and being able to bring the ego back. You can see I'm kind of making it smaller, putting in its natural, uh, joyful, healing, peaceful spot. It's where it belongs. It's where it feels happy and most comfortable, instead of just being running around like a zombie, or it's done like a zombie, and it's just using all of this material that's been given to it for the reasons it has. So in essence, when we're kind of being taught these things, it's going from 1 to 2 to 3, and how many people are watching movies and telling people, oh, watch this movie. And so we are continuously bringing together and pushing, and we're doing it to each other, all these things, and then it passes on and passes on and passes on. And yeah, what can I say? Stop it in its tracks is what I can say. And put your foot down and say, it is time not to have any of those crazy thoughts, and to think for ourselves. So the development, so that's kind of like a lot of actual activity, and too much more for you just go, oh, I know exactly what I need to do. Of course, I can't talk to it in all of its facets and its color, and maybe you're not in a position. Your ego might be getting the better of you right now, saying, she's talking a lot of nonsense, right? Your ego could be getting the better of you right now when you kind of say that stuff for certain things. And that's why some people can't even read the book Anastasia. Oh, I couldn't get into it. Their ego, negative ego, kind of gets them tripped up, and they put it down. Oh, you know all of this stuff already, or this is garbage. So at the end of the day, there's that part where you contract, you put all the pieces in the mind, stillness, mindfulness, in the now, all of that stuff, and then become the creator you are, and think for yourself. Think for yourself. I always knew during this event, when I'd hear the same thing parroted from a handful of people, and I go, oh, okay, this is not their own thinking. This is the same thing that's coming from the same whatever, wherever, from news or something like that. They're not thinking for themselves. I immediately know that when I hear the exact same thing from a number of people, right? Exact same thing. So we call that parroting, and but not thinking for ourselves and putting this more into perspective. So what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, talked about the sirens. Yeah, the whole emergent thing, setting that up. That'll give some people a good jolt when that thing turns on. And hopefully people don't have their phone close to them in the middle of the night. I have my phone out in my office. I don't want to be woken up by that. And who knows what they're going to do. But that's all I really wanted to talk about today. I know there's a ton of things kind of happening to better understand things. Oh, one more thing. That's right. I didn't put it on the list here, but I wanted to bring it up. A certain particular pharmacist, yes, is out talking about what's going on. So she's a pharmacist, and she had to leave because there's no darn way was she going to be promoting people to get the injection, and nor was she going to be getting it herself. So here's a pharmacist in the USA. I will put the YouTube link, but I downloaded the transcript because it's much easier for me to highlight a couple of things so I can bring out, and if they ever take it down. But she had a couple of other videos up and they were taken down. So where's my yellow? Oh, it's 19 pages, but before I kind of cleaned it up, it was 50 pages, but it's getting there. The highlights got to be somewhere here. Yeah, so one of the things, and she was showing things, which I can't hear, things up on their yeah, web pages, so to speak. But what she was talking about here was certain things that have to come about. There's a database. So you can't rename a product. That's what it is. And another distinct product, years later, because if you do, you'll lose all your original data because you won't be able to separate the data again if you realize that every single item which is imported and exported by all the world participating countries. So they all have a very unique product number. But interestingly enough, she was showing a page that actually had the tests, the COVID tests, but that they were ordered by all these countries. We're talking back to 2 or more years ago. So that was interesting. And then I know I have something else. Oh, yes. So this was interesting. So some of the things, as a pharmacist, she could and had connection to how things kind of worked anyway, and they'd go and look at things. So she was talking about the VAER system, where they do the adverse effects reporting system, right? Vaccine. And so in general, she was talking about 1,000 deaths is only 2 to 8% of the data that's getting reported. So if we look at VAERS, there are certain things that are happening. Now there's a lot here and it goes for a good hour, but that's the thing, 2 to 8%. Now recently we have heard where they absolutely know that not all is going to report it. And I was having a conversation, so in the day of, with a lady, she's from France, and she got her AstraZeneca, and we were having conversations about various things, and she had cancer a couple of years ago, and it was due to an infection. So if you have read my book, All Guts, All Glory, you're going to see how an infection actually can equate to cancer in the years to come. So she had this bad infection, but here's the thing, they got the shot. So I said, did you have any side effects? Yes, she had a very, very high fever for the night, and but she didn't report it. She didn't know she could. And doctors don't know what to do. And as this pharmacist says, they're not going to spend their time reporting these. Geez, they got enough to do, right? They got enough to do. And her husband had a sore arm, a very sore arm. And other people, I've asked him, so anytime people say they have something, did you report it? No. Do you know we're in experimental phase to 2023? Yeah, or some don't, some do. But as I will say again, if you do have any adverse effect, you should report it, no matter what it is. They'll be able to say, hey, 80% of the people tend to have a hard lump in their arm, for X number of days on average. Little stuff like that. That's the stats that can be helpful, just in case you're thinking you don't want to report anything worse, or it has to be worse. No, those are the kind of stats they're not going to know about. They, science, whatever, who's looking at it, who probably don't even understand all that's going on. But that it is so important to do that. And here's what I will say, in a sense, what I discovered because of the yard sale and calling Toronto Public Health, was that on the public health, so in this case Toronto Public Health, so whoever is your public health, that's who you're going to encourage, and even you yourself that had any ill effects whatsoever, 1 hour, 3 hours, overnight, serious, crazy overnight, is to actually go to your public health. Now in Toronto, I don't have the number handy here, but in Toronto, it's a whatever 416 number. You can look it up, and it was number 8 and then number 6. But anyway, listen to the prompts and press the right numbers. And either way, get somebody on the phone and say that you want to report it. How can you do that? They may not have their system set up, but Toronto Public Health does. And the other thing that this pharmacist says that quite often, what is going to happen, that if you report it in some cases, see, the good thing about the VARs, but maybe not the VARs or whatever, is not really, maybe there, I mean, it's technology at the end of the day. We're only going to take 1% of it, and that's all people are going to see. And they could set up a program like that. Absolutely. So it's best that you check in. VAR's probably easier, that it actually is loaded up on their system. You got to take the time. You got to know. You got to put parameters in it, and then you're going to generate a report. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it's not any easier. That's just what you got to do for the U.S. reporting system for vaccine adverse effects reporting system. So it's that kind of thing. And even inquire, if you're reporting anything or have anybody report, inquire, how can we, the public, see this information? How do we know it's being considered? You know, how do you know? So that's the thing we got to ask. You got to ask. You got to ask so that they can ask and people can ask. So please do that. And what else would I say here? So that's good. Public health, go through the prompts, and even if you don't hear it, press 0 or get somebody on the phone and let them know what you are wanting to do, and to do it yourself, or to have. If you can't do it yourself, sometimes because it's neurological things are happening, get somebody to do it for you. You can always ask the pharmacist, you can always ask your doctor, but again, if they're not going to do it, if they don't know how to do it, any hesitation at all, just do it yourself. And I think that would be the better thing anyway. So let's do some jokes, although this isn't jokes this time. This is another section in this jokes puns book, and laughs and whatever, that's called definitions. Jokes, puns, and riddles. So I guess it's kind of joking in the sense and definitions. Oh, and they don't even call it definitions, they call it definitions. All right, so let's go through some of these here. Astronomer, a night watchman. I probably won't talk to all of them, but let me just see how many pages there are. 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 pages. I won't do all of them, but let's go through some of them here. World, a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. That's world. And that's piece as in piece. Depth, height turned upside down. Ginger ale, a drink that feels like your foot when it goes to sleep. An archaeologist, a man whose career lies in ruins. Bacteria, the rear entrance to a cafeteria. Beetle school, a place to learn reeling, writhing, and rhythmic tick. Raisin, a worried grape. Skeleton, a guy inside out with his outside off. Research, research, when you look for something twice. I haven't read all of these, so we'll see. Expert. X is a mathematical term meaning unknown, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So an expert is an unknown drip under pressure. There you go. Psychiatrist, a man who doesn't have to worry as long as other people do. Atomic bomb, the thing that makes molehills out of mountains. Instead of mountains, out of molehills. Cheerios, hula hoops for ants. Coincide, what most people do when it rains. Coincide. I like that one. It's a good one. Let's do a few more, just to lighten up and know that we're not taking things too seriously, but prepared nonetheless, and aware nonetheless. Let's see. Iceberg. A kind of permanent wave. Professor, a textbook wired for sound. Nonsense, an elephant hanging over a cliff with his tail tied to a daisy. Nonsense, more like no sense. A volcano, a mountain that blew its stack. Television, oh, let's see what this one's all about. Television, and we'll leave you at this, and we'll read some of the other ones the next time, and we'll get through this whole chapter, this small chapter on definitions. Television, a machine that offers people who don't have anything to do a chance to watch people who can't do anything. So okay, I'm going to read that again. That's a mouthful. Television, besides being a vision, not your vision, but their vision, a machine that offers people who don't have anything to do a chance to watch people who can't do anything. All right, there you go. I'll put a few of those up on the whatever you want to call it, the page, the FB. So thanks for coming on. Great to see you, Gordon. Or at least know that you exist behind all those words and the pictures. But there you go. We are almost at 55. Can we go to 55? 55. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We'll go to 55. So I'm going to wish everybody a good evening. Take care. Enjoy your evening. Sayonara until next at Live at 5. And there we go.